Hi there, welcome to No Nonsense Whiskey. My name's VinPF, and on today's episode we're going to be covering a brand new release from the Loch Lomond distillery. Now, Loch Lomond is not actually a distillery that I've covered kind of any length on this channel. I'm not really sure why. I always enjoy their whiskies when I try them. I've had a couple over here, but yeah, it was really good to be able to get hold of this nice and early. I was actually invited down to a press event of theirs, and they gave us this bottle at the end of that event. It was the release event for this, and we went down there. We managed to try some lovely open fire barbecue, really tasty stuff, and we got to obviously taste this with master blender Michael Henry at the helm of it all. And yeah, as I said, they gave us this bottle at the end of it, so here I am with the review of it. Now, it's a brand new one, and what I can tell you right from the top is that if you like Loch Lomond, then you're pretty much going to be enjoying this. It's a nice, relatively affordable whiskey, 45 quid, and they've done some interesting things with this. Now, I'm going to have to refer to notes in this one because there's a lot to it, but essentially, what you've got here is 4 different whiskey styles from their distillery. If you know Loch Lomond distillery at all, you know they're probably one of the most diverse distilleries out there. They've got so many different kinds of stills and ways of doing things that they can just produce all these different wonderful eclectic whiskies, and this is kind of like a celebration of that. Now, actually, on the I haven't got the box anymore. The box actually took a bit of a tumble, so that's gone away now, but on here, this is how the bottle looks like. On the back you can see the kind of 2 styles of still that we're talking. This is the straight neck still, and this is the swan neck, classic swan neck. If you go to a distillery, this is more likely the one you're going to see, but some distilleries have some weird stills, especially some of the newer ones, but I digress. Okay, so what we have here is 4 different styles of whiskey. There's 3 unpeated and 1 peated, with the peated being about 5% of the total makeup of this. So I'm going to try and not look down as little as possible, but the first style, so the first 3 unpeated, they've got some come from the straight neck still, and this is a kind of narrow cut, so it's a high strength that's come out. If you know your whiskey making process at all, what they'll do is they'll first run the still. Once they've got it all running well, they'll run the still, and the first stuff that comes off, they chuck it away because it's probably got some methanol in it and things like that, some nasties that you don't really want. Then you have the heart of the cut, and then you have the tails, which typically goes back in again to be redistilled and just in perpetuity, say the words right. But yeah, it goes round and round and round. So yeah, the first bit tends to disappear because it's nasty, and then the heart is really what's kept for the whiskies. Now, that changes distillery to distillery, and in fact changes a lot at Loch Lomond. Usually a distillery has a house character, and they'll find their perfect cut, and that'll be anything. And they say narrow or wide, right? And that's just an important part of the information, because a wide cut will give you overall, it starts out quite high strength and it gets lower strength as it goes along. Towards the tail end, it's probably going to be something towards that 20% mark, which means that it's fine to keep in there because you want to cask up at 63.5. I think that's actually the rules in Scotland, but that tends to be everywhere now. Everyone's kind of following that general rule of 63.5%. But if you include some of that lower than 40% spirit that's coming through, then you don't have to water it down as much anyway. So yeah, I digress. So the first kind of style that's in this is that kind of tall neck, and it's a very narrow cut, so it's going to be a high ABV that comes out of that. The second style is going to be a wider cut on that narrow neck. Now, these are all being stored in American oak, and they can be a mixture of first fill, second fill, and refills. The third style is on the more traditional swan neck, so that's a more traditional style in there as well. Now, the peated, looking at notes, is on the straight neck, and that's going to be a wide cut. It's 50 ppm on the grain, so it's not on the other side. When we're measuring the peated part of it, the fennel parts per million, then they're measuring it before they've actually distilled it. So that's going to be dulled down a little by the time it gets into the glass, into the cask, into the glass, whatever. So yeah, it's not a high peat, is what we're saying here. And like I said earlier, that is going to be only 5% of this makeup. Those are aged in refill casks as well, all ex-bourbon. Some are barrels and some are hogsheads as well. There's lots going on. The other thing to say, I guess, as well, is that the unpeated malts in this are between 7 and 10 years old, and the peated element is going to be 5 years old. Now, Michael's brilliant. He sent me all of this on an email. What a legend. But he has said that, obviously there's no point talking about the different percentages in the makeup because they'll try to keep this even as possible. This is not just a one-off release. They're going to be releasing this more and more and more, I think. So to keep kind of like that flavour profile going, they'll pick and choose how they blend that. That's just how things work. Doesn't stop there. Once they've done this for however long they've been in their casks for, 7 to 10 or 5 years, there's a finishing period. I'm not sure how long that is, in their own custom built casks that have been heavily charred. Now this is quite cool because usually you get like a mid-level char, but these they've charred these for like an extra few seconds to make them really heavily charred. That's had a finishing period for whatever amounts of time, and then they've had one final finishing in refill casks, I guess just to chill it all out for a little bit, and that's for at least a month at the end. So yeah, there's a lot going on in this. It's at least 5 years old, that's the take home from that, but there's up to 10-year-old liquid in here as well, plus that finishing time that I just don't know what it is. I can't imagine it's too long, because cask does affect the colour, and heavy char I think probably would make this a bit more, so I'm going to guess a few months, maybe a year tops. Don't know, that is the fact of that. That said as well, because I threw the box, I'm actually not sure if this is added colour or chill filtered. I'm imagining it isn't on both of those counts, but I have no information about that on here. Nice 46%, and as I said earlier, £45. Now, let's get on to the actual tasting then and see what we've got in the glass. It's a reasonably looking whiskey. We like that sort of thing, but here at No Nonsense Whiskey, don't tend to care too much about colour anyway. Let's get onto the nose. Oof. Now, it's got a beautiful nose. It's loads of those orchard fruits that I like to talk about a lot. Apples, pears. I did write down fresh, but I've changed my mind in the last few minutes just as I've been recording this. And it's now almost like a stewed apple I'm getting from this. It's got quite heavy cinnamon notes to it. And there's a kind of heathery smokiness at the back end. It isn't overpowering at all. Just a wee little bit. Let's try on the palate. Yeah, it's got a totally different palate than it has for the nose. It's really sweet, jammy, like it's almost like a marmalade kind of texture to it. Really pleasant on the mouthfeel. The fruitiness kind of disappears fairly quickly and replaces it with just a little waft of smoke. Really nice, more of those kind of burnt oak elements that we're talking about. The finish, I guess, is kind of medium-ish. I'm gonna have a little taste and see what we get on the back end. Yeah, it's got a really nice kind of like just a touch smoky and a touch peppery on the finish towards the back end. It really makes me want to lean in and have a little bit more. But yeah, as I said, I don't tend to cover many Loch Lomond, so it's really good to be able to cover some more Loch Lomond in it. I really should make more of an effort to go out and buy some of their stuff, because this is really good, and they do whiskies that cover your entire kind of like spectrum of spending, let's say. I've covered some in the past that have been like £18, like that, the single grain peated or whatever it's called. Beautiful, well worth checking out. And this one here, as I said at the top of the show, if you are a fan of Loch Lomond and you've been umming and ahhing about getting this, maybe because you're into your age statements and it hasn't got one of those, I would say don't worry about that. I've given you a few facts and figures about age statement on it, so you kind of got a general idea about what's in this. But yeah, don't let that put you off. Loch Lomond do excellent whiskey, and if it's your wheelhouse, then I would definitely check it out. Don't worry about the kind of smoke and fire vibes, steam and fire, sorry, vibes on this. It's not that smoky at all. It's just got that little dabble in it that makes it kind of a bit of extra depth and a bit of extra flavour for me. And I think even complete like anti-peat people won't be bothered by this at all. Yeah, I reckon it's a thumbs up from me. Definitely check it out. Cheers for watching, and I'll see you again on more videos soon.